Good evening, bird brothers and sisters. Glad to be back and welcome you all to the revived series on the channel. Touchdown Talk comes back with a vengeance, presented by yours truly, Lindy End Zone for the touchdown, taking the lead for the Philadelphia Eagles, one video at a time. And, well, as part of the revive of Touchdown Talk, the man who needs no intro joining me here. Shake Squad, stand up. Joey Shakes in the building for his second visit, hanging out with me. The first stream was quite a while ago, 9 months, in fact. And in that span of time, a lot has happened about this football team, for better or for worse. But first and foremost, Joey, it's a pleasure to have you back on to hang out with me once more. How was your Thursday?
It's good, man. I mean, we've been trying to get this done for a while now, and finally we're here, we're ready to get it done, and we've been talking about it for a bit. So I'm excited about the draft. We got 2 weeks left, and a lot's going on. So a lot we have to catch up on together because we haven't talked in a while. So
I know. Well, 2 weeks already. How did it fly by that fast? I mean, just the anticipation from not just the Eagles, but across the entire NFL with all these free agency changes that have happened with, the biggest names going where they feel is the best place for themselves and moving on to having, different futures. And whether it was Devontae Adams and, for the Eagles, we still have, we're still wondering where guys like Deebo Samuel, what happened, what might happen with him. DK Metcalf is still on everybody's mind, like how he just go get him. But the more important thing here is, as we dive into the show pretty quickly here, I thought I'd bring it up as a means of keeping people on the right course of a direction here. And the reason I say that is because while, we're in a place of doing a bunch of mocks and, Eagles fans everywhere have their personal picks. They have their wants, their needs, the players who they seem is best fit for this football team. And yet, ever since the start of free agency, the Eagles have been giving us the answers to the test, so to speak, and who they have been targeting in free agency in terms of wide receiver, corner, bringing Hassan Reddick back home to Philadelphia, what was our highlight acquisition so far. And outside of him, the team in free agency has been, it's been pretty stale, I guess would be the best description for it. And, outside of Hassan Reddick, Zach Pascal and, that Olympic runner that they just brought in to be kind of a, like a specialist for punt and kick returning and, taking advantage of having speed on the football team again. And, well, let's start here in, let's start here and asking from you, but I already have a good idea since this has been such a long it seems like a long off season, at least, because we're impatiently waiting for the draft and what this organization is going to do. But I think I have an idea on where you're going to go in terms of how free agency has been so far and through your eyes, and if any of this has been, are you surprised at the direction the Eagles are going in free agency so far?
I'm a little surprised just because I think they went the total opposite in free agency, where I thought they were going to go more offensive in free agency, and they pretty much went more defense. And I thought the draft was going to be really heading towards more of defensive players. I think Howie was smart in some aspects. I'll give him some credit because he knew this wide receiver market was going to be crazy. Christian Kirk, they offered 13 and then he got paid 17. It kind of stinted the market. The Eagles were supposed to have Calvin Ridley on this team in a trade, rumored to be a third-round pick going to the Falcons. That would have been a steal trade. You have Calvin Ridley as the number 2 receiver, and I think we would have had him by now. So it's unfortunate, and it's not that Howie didn't do enough. It's that I felt like we had so much interest in every single wide receiver, every player, and it just seems like we have just let everybody go by. But with the, what I really wanted before free agency, or when free agency started, I wanted a veteran receiver here. This offense is way too young right now. This is why we've made so many mistakes. You have a first-year head coach in Nick Sirianni. You have a fresh offensive coordinator, a rookie quarterback. I mean, technically still a rookie, that was, at early in 2021, you know what I mean? So I couldn't put too much into Jalen Hurts, rising to the top too fast because I had to give it a little bit of time. But, Hassan Reddick, I think, was a very lucky signing. I think he came here at a discount, which I thought he did. I thought, he was offered more money elsewhere. Kaiser White was a really good sign that the Chargers really didn't want to lose on a one-year deal signed with TJ Edwards, that's going to be here another year after this year. So, I mean, it wasn't the free agency that it's been a very slow strategic free agency. And I don't think the Eagles are done yet. I feel like there's still things brewing with Tyron Matthew. There's still things going on, but we're kind of moving, we're starting to turn more towards the draft now and what the Eagles are going to do. So.
Yeah, and it's only right to this point that the team starts to shift their focus, and especially with the amount of top 30 visits that they've had, and trying to figure out what this team is doing. Obviously, we have started at free agency where we've seen a multitude of players that sparked their interest, and we just talked about Calvin Ridley, to where the trade was actually ready to be executed until the gambling stuff came up and he ends up getting suspended, and it's just the best luck for the Eagles, right, for stuff like this to happen. And but it's not a woe is us type of thinking of it that way, but it's just we always seem to get like the unlucky short end of the stick kind of events that would happen when we're trying to improve this football team. And then whether it was missing out on Calvin or we known that the team was very interested in Christian Kirk and, trying to make a competitive offer for him. They made a competitive offer for Allen Robinson. Marcus Williams ends up going to the Ravens over us. So we have a pretty good idea on where this football team is going in terms of the top, like the priority positions that they're trying to improve upon. Mm-hmm. And while free agency has started the way it has, that's not necessarily, like you said, that's not necessarily saying that they're done. I mean, free agency could span as deep as August. I mean, we've seen the team already, we've seen the team make some late signings, almost just before the season is starting. So it's nothing to freak out about right now, especially before the draft. So speaking of the draft, we know as of today that there has been 2 top 30 visits that have been scheduled for Philly, and those include safety Jaquan Brisker out of Penn State. Chris Olave is also expected to pay a visit today. That one of the top tier receivers in the draft out of Ohio State. Him and his teammate Garrett Wilson are supposed to go, anywhere from, top 10 to top 20. Jameson Williams is in that mix. George Pickens. So, I mean, and that's where I'm trying to get at here. We have to, when we're doing these mocks and everything, we have to understand that when teams assign these top 30 visits, it's not for no reason. They're doing one of two things. One, they're having these meetings with these specific players, for the reason of that according to their board and what they have studied, these are the individuals that they most likely have the best chance in drafting. So it's, they're not going to bring in guys like Sauce Gardner for no reason if they don't think that they're going to get him. Kayvon Thibodeau is another top name that we have already visited with. We just mentioned Jameson Williams, Pickens, Olave, Andrew Booth Jr., another one. So you compile all of those into the mixture, and they're still evening out to the goal of their free agency, and not just trying to do the necessary patchwork, but they're trying to build for the future. And a lot of these top 30 visits, they've had 17 so far. So we already know that safety's been on their receiver, defensive end, D lineman, offensive lineman. All of the positions that we have been talking about for the longest time, that we're just begging for, this team to have an upgrade somewhere in some sort of capacity. And I think so far, the Eagles are doing their due diligence. They're doing the necessary homework. But as we've known to this point, to me, honestly, the top half of the draft, rounds 1 through 3, that's where Howie Roseman has every Eagles fan holding their breath. It's fair to say at this point. So now that we have an idea on in terms of the top 30 visits that the Eagles have had, I mean, in your opinion, we'll start with the first round, being that we have 2 first-round picks, and that's not to say that we may or may not trade out of one. But if we're going to start with those 2 first, where do you think the Eagles would go in terms of which side of the football? Where do you think they would go, and who would you take in terms of positional need at the first 2 picks?
I mean, as of right now, I think we saw Howie Roseman in the offseason talking about priority, talking about getting to the quarterback, and, with some of these contracts, what they look like now, especially on the defensive line with Fletcher Cox, that's pretty much not going to be here after this year. Hargrave's a free agent after this year as well, but I think he produced pretty well last year before, he got double teamed, and then, we didn't really have any, help on the edge. We couldn't really free him up too much. So, which I think he's a big re-sign candidate as well. To say you could save about $13 million with him. As of right now, I'm really wanting one of these 2 Georgia defensive tackles in Devontae Wyatt and Jordan Davis. I really think they have to upgrade that spot, especially with you could potentially lose 2 defensive tackles, which I don't think it's going to happen. But with Fletch gone, how much do you put into Milton Williams going into his second year? I think there's something good. I think there's something brewing with Milton Williams, but I think they go after one of those Georgia defensive tackles. They've been pretty much on my radar since the combine, and I love both of them. So I think they go trenches. If you're taking the 18th pick, I think as of what I want right now is what I've originally wanted for a while, is to go get a cornerback, get a homegrown talent to Philadelphia. The Eagles have brought in Andrew Booth Jr. on a pre-draft visit, and the number 1 corner in this draft, Ahmad Sauce Gardner. I really would love to move up for Gardner if there is a case in that. It's going to be tough because I think he's going to be going top 5. I think he's a top 5 guy as of right now, because if you even trade with Carolina at 6, if you could even do that, it looks like they're willing to trade back. It's not going to be enough, and then you have the Giants and the Jets in front of you, which the Giants kind of scare me a little bit, even though there is rumors about they might trade back their 5th-round pick, which they probably should, because they don't have another first-round pick for 23 to, they're not set at quarterback right now. This is a contract year for Daniel Jones, so there's a lot really rolling on this thing with the Giants. If it's not, I mean, Andrew Booth is my guy, but if it's not Andrew Booth, I would take a chance on Stingley in a heartbeat. I don't know where he's going to go, but I would try to get in front of the Vikings at 12, just because Gladney's gone with the battery charges, and then they signed Patrick Pearson to a 1-year deal. So they need one more corner as of right now. So I can go through the whole list of cornerbacks, but if it's not if it's not Sauce, then Stingley. If it's not Stingley, then I would definitely go Andrew Booth Jr. If it's not Andrew Booth Jr., I'd go Kyer Alam from Florida. If it's not Kyer Alam, the last I would take is like McDuffie, which I don't think he should even be a first-round pick on just being him more of a zone coverage guy and playing inside. So
you look at it. You look at Sauce Gardner, and you already know the difficulty that it's going to be, especially when you're talking about some NFC East rivals that are ahead of you right now in terms of picking, and we're looking at Ahmad as already considered not just the best cornerback prospect, but one of the best overall prospects in this draft alone. So, with him having that high of a price tag and that much of an attraction to even teams that aren't even in need of a corner, it's not just the Eagles that are picking here, and it's not just the Eagles that have their own scouting department. They're these organizations are not stupid in understanding that sometimes you have to go BPA, best player available. And like I dropped with my video on Andrew Booth, and I'm taking this as the Eagles' best backup plan if they're just going to stay put at 15. And while they've been criticized in the past for that, it just depends on how the board falls and where they have evaluated the talent, in this draft pool, especially when we're trying to upgrade positions that are in dire need. And, whether it's edge rusher or corner, like those have been two of the top needs, and receiver still floats in there, even though we have high expectations for Devontae Smith going into year 2 and having a good backup in Zach Pascal working out of the slot. And you already know that Sirianni has high expectations for Quez Watkins, as hoping that he's going to be one of the best number 2s he's ever worked with. And well, he's dropping the bomb on these guys. And and just what makes it worse in the background is the fact that, we're talking up these receivers, and, we're talking up Devontae Smith going into year 2 and whatever the case may be, where that puts a guy like Jalen Reagor down the depth chart, who was, a former first-round pick. And granted, was he evaluated too high by Philly? Everybody would agree, most definitely, that he should have been at least a late first, early second. But at the end of the day, it just shows the fear in the fan base with Howie Roseman going through the first through the third round, and those times where he's branching off and not paying attention to the board and not paying attention to the individuals in that department who are telling him that you got 2 choices here, or you got 1. You got to take this guy at this spot. He's the best fit and whatnot. And well, too many voices are being heard, and trying to impress the owner. As we know, Jeffrey Lurie's opinion has been very strongly considered at times, especially with the J.J. Arcega-Whiteside pick. And well, as we get further excited into this draft, we can't help but to remind ourselves that, Howie Roseman is the biggest wild card in this whole thing on whether we float or sink when we're making these selections.
Lindy, let me tell you something. So you take that 2000. See, this is what scares me, because what I want, what Howie wants are two different things. But I got to say this, okay? I thought long and hard about this, and I think that 2019 draft was a heavy defensive draft. They took Andre Dillard that they never brought in for a pre-draft visit. So these pre-draft visits that you're seeing right now, you never know, what's a smokescreen, what's not, because they don't want to give too much away. So I definitely understand that.
Yep.
But when they drafted Andre Dillard, no pre-draft visit, they drafted Miles Sanders, they drafted J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, they drafted Clayton Thorson, they drafted Sharif Miller, which was pretty much the 5th round pick from Penn State at defensive end. They drafted one defensive guy in 5 rounds, and that was a heavy defensive draft. Howie Rose's been really trying to be the smartest man in the room and go total opposite. So what I want when Howie wants
not here anymore either.
Well, yeah, and you know what? It's also scary because now you go into this draft and you say, okay, like it would be easy to say let's just go defense, but at the same time, they've missed out on so much opportunity to get an offensive guy or at least a veteran or something in the building. It wouldn't pass me, bro. It wouldn't even pass me if they went after a wide receiver in the 1st round. It really wouldn't surprise me because I feel like they kind of have to now. You know, you can wait till receiver's great because you can wait till mid rounds. I mean, the Eagles got to pick 2nd round, 51, which isn't a great pick. I feel like they still need to at least. I think they have enough ammo. They got 2, 3. They got 2/3. They got 3/5. A 6, a couple 7s. So there's some ammo to definitely use, but it wouldn't put it past me if they got more of offense, at least a weapon for Jalen Hurts, an offensive lineman, a running back, and a couple defensive guys in the first 5 rounds at least.
Yeah, it's just a shame that we're going into another year where we're talking about the same needs for this football team, and while I don't think receiver is hurting as bad as corner or safety or edge rusher, the point of the matter is the fact that they're still looking for those cornerstones, those staples, and those cogs in the system that you don't have to worry about. We're going into a season where your number 1 corner, while he has been a Pro Bowler recently, you're going into the season where your Pro Bowl corner is 31 years old and there's nobody to back him up. And while we heard Sirianni talk about that he's talking up Kerry Vincent Jr. and Tay Gowan and Zach McPherson, we're not fazed by that smokescreen, okay? As many smokescreens as Howie's trying to pull here with some of the top 30 visits, which we will get to one in a second, that may or may not be a smokescreen that could completely change the outlook of how we're analyzing this upcoming draft. While they can do this as much as they want, but we know deep down that no matter what, they're still looking to improve at these spots. Safety, it's just in the same position. I mean, who do you like behind Anthony Harris? And people don't even like Anthony Harris all that much because he's just average at his position. He was brought in to back up Rodney McLeod, to where Rodney now went to the Colts. So now you're in a more pressed position because you don't like the depth that you have there. Tyron Matthew is still sitting out there, and while it seems that he's pretty patient in waiting for the contract that he's hoping to get. But the longer he sits out on the market, the less of a deal he's going to get. Everybody's got a good idea on that. But at our safety spot right now, I mean, that's you're talking a position that the secondary has a huge reliability on, especially if you don't upgrade on the defensive line. I mean, for how many years under Jim Schwartz, we've seen that picket fence, bend but don't break style of defense, to where they wait until the offense gets all the way down the field, and then they start bringing pressure when it's too late, or they live by the blitz and die by the blitz in the 4th quarter when they're throwing up a prayer. And we're looking at this safety position like Anthony Harris, Marcus Epps, Craig James, who primarily plays special teams, that he floats between corner and safety. Kayvon Wallace has been a disappointment. I get he's a 4th rounder, but a kid that was talked up as one of the Clemson captains in his draft class, and he wore that coveted number 7 like the players at LSU do. And I mean, you're almost stuck. You're almost stuck, like nowhere to go, and it just puts you in a spot where you don't want to be, where you're second guessing yourself on what positions you want to take, especially in the first 3 rounds. And while this draft is again top heavy with a lot of talent, and only one safety is projected to go in the first, now you're in a situation where what positions am I prioritizing to take the load off of others? And I just don't like that position for the Eagles right now, especially with Howie Roseman being what seems as the final decision maker in making these selections.
Yeah, no, they're if Tyron Matthew, like, I'm not putting too much effort into it. Like, I think it's on a really good roll right now. Like, you had the virtual visit, you had, the interest is still there. They're trying to make a big push right now. I mean, there's a couple other teams still after him. So, you have the Rams that have already spent enough money as it is. How they're getting to sign all these guys, I have no idea. But like you said, it's going to come down to money, and it comes down to length of contract too. So, I'm not even putting much effort into it. Like, every day I've been kind of looking and seeing. So at this point, I'm kind of saying to myself, they probably don't even have him, or the longer it takes, it probably could be something good for us. So who knows? Anthony Harris, they brought back just because at this point, not really a big flash. I thought, we couldn't even really tell if these safeties even played well. I thought Marcus Epps played pretty good last year. Not great, not bad, but I thought he played pretty solid as that third safety. But McLeod has been injured. He's kind of been taking a downfall to his career, and he went to the Colts on that 1-year deal. So I said, okay, I mean, then we're not going to bring him back. I figured maybe there was a chance they would bring him back, but if there's a lot of rumors about Kyle Hamilton moving out of the top 10 a lot because of his combine wasn't fantastic, and I still think he's going to be a good player at 6'4", over 220 pounds, and just a lethal weapon at this point. I think he's going to be a good player. So it's not even just the first round. Like, I wouldn't even prioritize safety in the first round at all, because you can go into the second and you can get you have Lewis Kine, you can go get Jaquan Brisker. I think is one of my favorites from Penn State, just because he's an in the box guy that could play linebacker, play corner. He can pretty much move anywhere. You can use him as a pass rusher. I think Jaquan Brisker has a lot of tools in the toolbox. You have Petre from Baylor. I mean, he's a rangy guy at safety. There's a lot of good safeties going to the mid round of the second round. So I wouldn't harp too much on Hamilton. I wouldn't harp too much in that first round for safety if we don't get Tyron Matthew. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's just the biggest thing that the Eagles need to be careful with in terms of the direction that that they should go, or that they have to go. And I think that's where you have to draw the line down the middle, and especially going into a draft where Howie seemed to have gotten that premature 3-year extension, and everybody talking about, well, why couldn't they do this after the draft? So we get some better evaluation on him going forward, and stuff like that. And it's like, oh my goodness, here we go again, another distraction, another distraction upcoming to the draft, whether you want to take it positively or negatively. But I think the latter is more popular than the former at this point in time. But yeah, you know what? So I think another good idea here. We named some of the top 30 visits that the Eagles have already done, and I think it's only fair to go over these, to go over some, or if not all, of these 17 top 30 visits, and kind of try and figure out not just the type of direction that the Eagles are going in, but the direction that we feel the Eagles should go in at the same time. So we already know that Jaquan Brisker and Chris Olave are two individuals that either had their top 30 visits today or scheduled to have a top 30 visit. Brisker, you just talked about, one of your favorite safety prospects in the draft, coming out of Penn State. Which, by the way, the Eagles have done their homework on Penn State players. There's at least 3 of them in their 17 top 30 visits. The other 2 being Arnold I can't
say his name either, so I don't blame you.
His last name.
It could be the I don't
know.
I
tried it. I couldn't do it, but the pass. He is a pass rusher, and then you got another Sam linebacker, Jesse Lacuda. I guess you can pronounce it that way. Not Lukta. That doesn't make sense to me. But Jesse Lacuda out of Penn State. Another what seems to be kind of, I don't know. He's just a little bit of an undersized linebacker. I guess he fits the same mold as the other linebacker that the Eagles have already brought in D'Angelo Malone from Western Kentucky. So him and Jesse share the same measurables in terms of height and weight. But we'll start at the top here. We already talked about Jaquan Brisker a little bit and trying to figure out the ultimate direction on where they might go in safety. But as we know, the Eagles have not taken the safety or linebacker position seriously for a combination of anywhere from 2 to 4 decades, and it's kind of embarrassing, if we're being honest. It's kind of embarrassing that you don't split the priority evenly in trying to find your cornerstones at those positions, like whether you want to put Ed Reed and these guys are complete outliers, like Hall of Fame type players, I know, but you get the premise, like an Ed Reed or a Bobby Wagner who just went to the Rams, guys like that. The Eagles haven't done it very often, and Brian Dawkins was one of the last ones that we can really point to, and so the history hasn't really been great. But if we start on the offensive side of the ball here, we already know the Eagles have done their homework in terms of offensive linemen. You can book that every single year. The fact that that is one of the top 2 priorities that the Eagles do every year. It has been part of Andy Reid's philosophy for the longest time. That's a lot of where Howie Roseman's was implemented, because he followed Andy Reid for how many draft classes, and and that, like, this was the biggest thing for him, is building from the trenches out, because if you don't have protection for your quarterback or running backs to have a big stout group of guys in front of them blocking, or even vice versa on the opposite side of the football, if you don't got a pass rush, your team is doing next to nothing. So that's easy to get out of the way. And we've already seen that for how many years with Brandon Brooks and Lane Johnson. Jason Kelce, who thankfully came back another year, the best center in football, returns again, and deservingly so, that he got the money that he so deserved. Eagles fans can't thank Jason Kelce enough for returning again, because we would be in a little bit of trouble, but that's not to say that we don't have the depth behind him, even though guys like Landon Dickerson and maybe Isaac Seumalo, whoever they decide to put at that center spot, they could use a little bit of work. But nonetheless, we know they do their homework on the offensive line. But biggest topic of discussion, or one of them, has been the wide receiver position. And we'll break down the 3 receivers that the Eagles have already brought in for a top 30 visit. So we got Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia. It's pretty damn good. It's pretty damn good in terms of talent. We know up to this point the Eagles are pretty darn serious in wanting to upgrade, or not just upgrade, but add to a building skill level at that position. So Chris Olave, Jameson Williams, George Pickens. I don't know how easy of an answer this is going to be for you, Joey, but because we have to split this between imagination and reality. Because we've already analyzed this coaching staff long enough to know the direction that they're going and the type of players that they want. So Olave, Jameson Williams, George Pickens. Of those 3, who is your selection? And of those three, who is the Eagles' selection?
Oh man, I feel like I'm going to take a big gamble. I'm going to gamble a little bit.
Hmm.
I'm going to go with Jameson Williams because I think
Okay.
without his injury, he's the best receiver in this draft. He is a monstrous route runner. He gets a lot of separation. He can stretch out a defense easily. I just imagine him being at number 2 with Devontae Smith and just what he's going to bring to the table. I mean, in space and who are you going to cover at this point? Plus, on top of this run game and the protection with this offensive line, now it's going to open the run game as well. Jameson Williams is just I don't know. The more I watch him, the more I want him. There were people like saying, you got to check out Jameson Williams beginning of, probably at the end of last year. And I was like, let me check him out. And I like his style, man. I think he's going to be better than D-Jack. I think he's going to explode. I think he's going to explode this year. Come first game, I think he's gonna wreak havoc on a lot of people. So from coming off the ACL injury, okay, he's going to be running. He's doing his rehab. He'll be running by the draft. He will be ready for training camp, so that's a good thing. So there has been rumors out today that he could be a top 10 pick, and I don't blame teams for taking a chance because I've heard a lot of Jameson Williams. I've heard a lot of Garrett Wilson as well. Both of them being top 10, first 2 receivers taken off the board. So I can believe it. But Jameson Williams would be my guy. Not saying I don't like Olave because I think Olave is going to be really good. That I think he's the receiver that Rager should have been, coming out of college and, being, not a big receiver at all, but being quick at the line and getting those short touches for very big chunk yards. Williams is my guy. I'm taking a gamble. I'm going all in. All the chips are on the table.
Yeah, and I mean, me and a lot of Eagles fans don't blame me at the same time because and granted it's the first round versus the second round, but we already know the broken records that have happened over the course of the last couple of years with this football team and specific draft picks. But when you talk about making that gamble on a Jameson Williams, people are clenching, like they're in such a state of nervousness, like, oh, we don't want to see another DK Metcalf situation again. And, granted, every NFL football team passed, every team passed on him in that draft class, but it was just because of the fact of who the selection was that the Eagles took, and the fact that when the opportunity was on the table yet again, the Eagles still didn't take it. So now again, here comes another scenario where there's another big time playmaker coming from that same school that you guys just drafted the Heisman winner from last year, who broke Deshaun Jackson's rookie receiving yards record, and you have high expectations for him. And then you get into the conversation of, well, why doesn't it make sense to pair a Bama alumni with another on the same football team and maybe see magic happen? So, yeah, I mean, it's just we can't get our hopes up right now. We can't get our hopes up right now just to preserve the possibility of disappointment. Let's just be 100 about it. But in terms of Chris Olave and George Pickens, now we're in a discussion of, okay, well, Olave, Jameson, and George are not exactly the same receiver. I think that's fair to say, especially when George is the biggest of the three, coming in at 6'3", just under 200 pounds. He seems to be that perfect mold for this football team, where a lot of people are asking the Eagles to get that 50-50 guy, when they had interest in Julio Jones and and those type of receivers, and we had interest in DJ Chark at one point in time. Guys that aren't afraid to go up there and get the jump ball. So you kind of have to get some kind of grip on what the Eagles may do here, or who best fits the offense going forward. And while these top 30 visits are giving us almost 3 different scenarios, to where, in my opinion, I think for what Chris Olave brings to the table, if you're going to feature Devontae Smith as the number 1, that's where Chris Olave would be the perfect number 2, because he did just enough, or he did more than enough, I should say, to be almost just as enough of a threat on that Ohio State team like Garrett Wilson was. Like, they were almost the perfect combination to balance each other out. And you could almost see the same scenario between him and Devontae Smith. So that's why the intrigue is there for Olave. And then you get George Pickens, who could be that perfect 50-50 target that can be your full-time tight end on the field, where you can stay in 11 personnel more often, or you can have 4 receivers if you want. You can go 4 verticals and trick the defense a little bit. So, man, I don't know, because all 3 of these scenarios make perfect sense for the way this Eagles offense is constructed. But on the flip side of that, we understand at this point in time, this modern NFL is a passing league, and a lot of ticket sales and a lot of that flash really come from those explosive football teams, to where not only do they have the quarterback in place, but they have the receivers in place to jump off your TV screen. So I think that's I think that weighs in a little bit to where the Eagles might go here at wide receiver, but I think it ultimately relies on some sort of final evaluation on where they picture their depth currently, and who would be the best fit of those 3 at this point in time, to really give them the perfect blend of what they have set up in their playbook.
Yeah, no, true. I when you talk about combinate, like, they have to find the right combination, and really it's up to them. They can get a guy that's more deep threat, or a guy that has maybe a little bit of size to him. Like, if you want to go for a Christian Watson in the 2nd round from North Dakota, or something like that, if you really want to do that, you have a guy in Burks, Treylon Burks, that's really physical. But I think Burks is one of my favorites, just because I think he's one of the most well-rounded receivers, and more overall almost complete receivers coming into the draft, which I really do like. He was one of the first guys I covered on the channel, and I really did like his play style. So he can go anywhere from between 15 to 20 to the end of the first round. So it just matters what Nick wants in this offense with the quarterback that he has right now. So do they want that big receiver to give Jalen Hurts a little bit of help? Let me just throw this out there: just do not draft Drake London. That's all I'm saying. I hate Drake London. I'm done with Drake London. I just stay away from Drake London. For me, I just feel like there's so much more in this draft. I think there's better receivers in the 2nd round than Drake London when it comes to it. So
at least I'm not on that hill alone there. I personally don't want Drake London either.
Don't be afraid to say it, Drake. If you don't like Drake London, you don't like Drake London for certain reasons. Like, I think he's good. Like, I think he has good speed. I don't think he has elite speed. I think contested catches wise, I think he's great. I think he's great in open space, but I just don't think it's enough. I think the Eagles could do a lot better than that. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, like I said, you can go Sky Moore, you can go Wan'Dale Robinson in the 3rd round if you want. I mean, there's some good receivers to like the 3rd round. Like, there's some good guys out there. So
yeah. it's just all in where the Eagles feel that it's best fit to make these selections. But everything that we're getting right now is pointing to the first round, and I think that's the easiest. I think that's the easiest. You know, what's the word I'm looking for? Like the turn of direction that a lot of us should be paying attention to. And yes, Treylon Burks, another one that I forgot to mention because, as we know, Aaron Moorhead was already leading the pro day over there for Treylon Burks and other receivers. So this Eagles coaching staff got a pretty detailed look on, like firsthand on what Treylon Burks could offer to this football team if he is available.
True.
So as far as offensive side of the football goes, I mean, there isn't a whole lot here in terms of the top 30 visits. It's just primarily receiver and offensive linemen. Offensive lineman we got offensive tackle, and then we have a guard spot in Kenyon Green out of Texas A&M, Tyler Smith, a tackle out of Tulsa, who's got a Lane Johnson type of build, 6'5", over 320 pounds. So it's good to see that they're following that kind of mold, and we've had the blueprint for how many years, and in the type of players that Jeff Stoutland, the best offensive line coach in football, may I add. I think all Eagles fans know that. Not being biased, that's just the truth. This guy can work with almost anybody except, Andre Dillard. Excuse me. Oh, sorry. The man with no versatility that we spent the first round pick on. Oh, I'm just piling it on right now.
I think part of Andre Dillard, I think part of Andre Dillard was the Eagles screwing that up. I think they screwed him up. I think when they drafted him, Jason Peters was already here. They redshirted him.
That's true.
I think that's part of it too, bro. Dillard, I think could have done a lot more, and I think they killed his confidence after putting him at right tackle for one game. So it didn't really help out too much.
Yeah, I took the words out of my mouth. I was about to say there was a confidence issue there too. I mean, I still can't get that game out of my head where they immediately switched him to the right side and completely screwed him up. I mean, he even said after the game it was like drawing or using a pencil with the opposite hand. Like you have to learn that all over again.
Lane Johnson moved to left tackle, and he didn't really necessarily play that bad, but he didn't look normal. He didn't look good. No. You know what I mean? So
and then again, there's those anomaly guys like Jordan Mailata who just got an extension this year that was able to play both the left and the right side in Lane Johnson's absence. I mean, how blessed were we to turn this rugby player into a Pro Bowl tackle? And and it's a testament to not only how damn good Stoutland is, but it's also a testament to Jordan not giving up on himself as a player, especially going through that early back injury that really messed up his development. And that has to be one of the better stories in the modern NFL right now, when you're talking about a player coming from a totally different atmosphere and climbing through the adversity that he did to be one of the best tackles in all of football. And he could very well be the best when some of these guys when some of these older guys retire, like who am I thinking of? Tyron Smith from Dallas. Eventually, when he retires, you can very well put Mailata in that category. It's just impressive to this point. So that goes over the offensive linemen. As we're closing up on this stream here, we'll try to get to the we'll try to get to the defense real quick, because there's some pretty important players defensively. And I remember at the beginning of the stream here, you named two of them right off the bat. But as a quick note, I appreciate everybody that has hopped in and out of this stream up to this point. You guys are really making the magic happen right now, and I'm deeply appreciative of everything. Between Joey making a second visit to the channel, and what I have what I've done what I've done for myself and bringing my channel back to its former glory and making some hard decisions and taking Mavericks coverage off and trying to get over the just like that the overwhelmingness that made me leave and to come back to this level. It's I'm grateful for everything up to this point. So thank you to everybody that has tuned in to this presentation as we're continuing our football talk and in preparation to the draft. And it's going. We're having a hell of a time so far, Joey. And aside from the chat, I'm not purposely avoiding you guys. I'm trying to condense as much as possible to give you the entertainment that you can come back to and listen to us, in terms of good content to help you guys get an idea on, what we think and where we feel the Eagles should go in terms of this draft. So let's get to the defensive side of the ball here, Joey, and like I said, we'll start this on the defensive line. As you mentioned, those two big boys from Georgia in Jordan Davis and Devontae Wyatt that have already had their top 30 visits for the Eagles. And, as we talked about 10 minutes ago or so, and, readdressing the philosophy that Howie Roseman has done, for the longest time in his tenure, that it's always been a key markup for him that defensive line, offensive line, prioritizing those trenches has been one of his number one priorities. And there's no shortage of that when it comes to seeing these top 30 visits and the direction that they're going to keep this defensive line bolstered, especially when some of these veterans walk out the door. So Devontae Wyatt, Jordan Davis, if you had to choose between one of those two, and I know it hurts right now.
No.
I know it's painful. I know it's painful in those two bulldogs, no pun intended, of where they came from, out of college from Georgia. Devontae Wyatt coming in at 6'3", 304. Jordan Davis, a big 6'6", 340 pounds. And before you make your choice on which one of those two you would rather have, and obviously it would have to be a first round selection, one of the things that holds me back, unfortunately, in terms of Jordan Davis is realizing that in his time at Georgia, there was a lot of cases where he was not a 3-down tackle. And, you have to imagine a guy at his skill level to be taken off the field at any point in time. I don't know how much of a red flag that draws, but there's got to be some level of concern there if you're considering him as one of your top selections in the draft.
Yeah, I've heard this a million times. It's a little concerning, and I know it's a hybrid scheme. When you go from a 3-4 to a 4-3, I mean, you put him in the 3 technique, you put him at a nose tackle, which I think he's going to be more efficient as a pass rusher, because I think of him more as a run stuffer. But the guy could pass rush. The guy can clog up the hole. The guy is immovable. I think it's just something that he's just going to get better at. This is a rotational line, and who knows? We might bring out the best in him going into the NFL. So I think there's a lot of upside to it, and yeah, I think the Eagles have not only were Devontae Wyatt and Jordan Davis were the first 2 pre-draft visits. So I'll just say that right now, first 2. So that's important. But number 3, I think Howie has been drooling out of the mouth since the combine after watching these two, because they're both running in the 4.7s. That's just, how quick. And I've looked at, I don't just look at Jordan Davis. Oh, he's just big and that's it. I think there's another issue I have in mind too with Jordan Davis is that maintaining his weight and not losing his explosiveness over the years, because he's he's a lot. He's 300. What is he? 360 pounds.
Rated at 340 right now.
340. I mean, you have to. He has to kind of, they got to be careful with him and have to maintain his weight and not lose some explosiveness and get too slow over the years. So that's one thing they have to do with him. But that's why Jordan Davis is going to open up so much for this defensive line for the edge rush that we need really badly, especially freeing up a lot for Javon Hargrave too. So who are you going to block? I mean, who's the guy you're going to block? So we'll see what happens. But with Devontae White, it's different because I think he is a pure pass rusher, and you could move him from defensive tackle to defensive end. You can move him all over the place. So if you want to move him to defensive end and bring Milton Williams up or bring somebody else up, that's totally fine, whatever you want to do. Depending where they put Fletcher Cox, and here's another theory I have. I think with Fletch, if Devontae White or Jordan Davis play better this offseason between the, maybe preseason or something like that, they could make a jump to where they move Jordan Davis or Devontae White up at defensive tackle and put Fletcher Cox back next to Milton Williams. So this way you have a nice balance there. So with veteran and younger player, you know what I mean? So you have a nice little balance there between both, top, 4 defensive tackles. That's what I think.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's better to work with 2 units that you can switch in and out instead of 1. I mean, you can go back to how the 2017 year was constructed and how and the amount of substitutions that they were able to do on that defensive line to keep these guys fresh, and that's why we had the successful pass rush that we did and how consistent it was throughout the year. And you talk about Jordan Davis's size. I mean, and I was just imagining this at the same time, though. You can almost put him alongside Jordan Mailata, and they feel to be about the same build, but. Because it's 2 different sides of the football, Jordan's going to need a little more explosiveness because of him exerting more energy, and I think that's fair to say. He's exerting more energy trying to rush the quarterback, whereas you have a combination in Jordan where he's either backpedaling to pass protect and prevent that pass rusher from getting to his quarterback, or he's going out on a run, as a blocker. So I mean, I guess it balances out here and there, but if we never necessarily had weight concerns for Jordan Mailata, I guess it wouldn't be as big of a deal with Jordan Davis, especially with him coming fresh out of college. You have a younger body to work with that he can always build into his prime adult frame into the NFL. So it doesn't seem to be much of a turnoff if you consider him your top DT selection.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it's I just think they would have to, I would think they would have to, I would try to get the right combination. I try to move some guys around, to have that calibration towards each other. You know what I mean? So I think due time with just reps, I think Jordan Davis will play well and play better. I think, lining up as a nose tackle, he's just, holy crap. I mean, he is just, if he
waiting to happen.
I'm telling you, you better hit that guy these offensive linemen better on a run play. They better hit him quick. They better get to him first, because if Jordan Davis has this little bit of space to work with, he is going to bombard. And I don't even care about sack numbers. Like, this guy is just going to get pressure after pressure after pressure. No joke. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah. So being that we're working with what seems to be 2 minutes left. 2 minutes left.
Go ahead. Go ahead. You want to go go a couple more? If you want to go.
I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if the hour mark was strict.
Go ahead.
But we're already having a hell of a time, man. Going through these players, but I don't think you made your choice between these 2. So if you were sitting there at 15 or 18, and I guess for hypothetical, if both of them were still available now, granted 15 and 18, there's not much of a value difference between those 2 selections. But if those 2 were available at any given point in time in the first round, who are you taking?
Oh, I'm taking Jordan Davis immediately. And if Jordan Davis is off the board, and just say one of them is off the board, I'm taking the other one. I want one of those 2 defensive tackles from Georgia here in Philadelphia, Midnight Green. That's what I want, and that's what's going to happen. I promise you, 300%, it's going to happen.
It's very arguable to this point that defensive tackle should be one of the top 2 picks in this draft, especially when we have arguably missed on the last selection we have made in the first round, and that'll kind of give us a gateway into the defensive end position, and I think everybody knows that guy that I was just talking about, Mr. I have more penalties than I do sacks in my career so far, and Derek Barnett getting that 2-year extension. But on the flip side of that, he could very well be released after the first year without no cap hit or consequence to the Eagles, so there's nothing for Philly to eat. So I mean, you can think of this more as a 1-year deal to for us to give ourselves some breathing room that, okay, maybe this wasn't all that terrible, but no, at the end of the day, it was still terrible. He didn't warrant a new contract. At the end of the day, I don't care if he was a first-round pick. There's just there's no story that you can deliberately create to where this guy has more penalties than he does sacks. It's always him, Derek Barnett. And Sirianni, I love you, but don't try and back that up. You know exactly who you were talking about.
It's always him. It's always him. I won't forget it.
Don't back it up now. Don't back it up, because
all this does is make Howie look good that he got a rookie contract into a second contract. That's all it is. All it is it sounds so freaking stupid, but it's the truth. It really is all about, since Derek Barnett is re-signed with the Eagles on his second contract, that makes Howie look good. Whether he's a good player, it makes no sense. But that's what I take out of it. As a depth player, fine. But this guy has been nothing. I mean, he broke Reggie White's sack record. I was 50-50 on the pick in 17. I was on the Dalvin Cook train that year. I wanted Dalvin Cook that badly. I know he tore his ACL that year, but that's what I wanted from that draft. And Hassan Reddick was like the pick right before that. You know what I mean? So you have a guy in Derek Barnett that's hurting you more than helping you, and he's done some really horrible things on the field. It's not just getting a penalty. It's like he's doing unnecessary things on the field that's hurting the team. He's pushing Tom Brady 15 yards away from the play 6-7 times. He tackles the running back to the ground, and the whistle's blowing. He's still trying to punch the ball out. Like, he's just a knucklehead. And I wasn't happy with the $13 million for 2 years, whatever it is. And if they can get out of it after a year, that's great. But because here's what I think of that whole situation, because Ojabo tore his Achilles, at his pro day. And I think Ojabo was on the board for the Eagles. I really think, because I was all in before Devontae White and Jordan Davis. I was all in for an edge rusher this year. I was all in 100%, whether it was Walker at the time before Walker's now becoming the first overall pick. And I thought he was going to be at least an 8 to 12, top 10, something like that. Mm-hmm. I like Jermaine Johnson. Karlaftis is okay. I think they're, Kayvon Thibodeau is another name you have to watch out going through the top 10. If he slides, you might have to take a shot. I don't know, depending on who's left. But Barnett coming back kind of solidified the fact that maybe they thought, one of those guys got hurt. They want to add a depth piece. He was going to be relatively somewhat cheap, I guess. But, it sucks. It's just the reputation of Howie Roseman saying, look what I did. I got a guy coming off a rookie contract and now is on a new contract for the Philadelphia Eagles. That's one feather in the cap. It's another medal on the general's suit. I mean, that's pretty much what it is, in my opinion.
Why did it have to be appropriate for the just to try and justify Howie's extension? That's how I take it. Like,
Dude, I didn't even make a video on it because I wasn't even surprised over it. I really wasn't surprised. Hey, dude, like, look, at the end of the day, this is what I'm taking as I'm trying to be positive and not be all depressed every day. This is what I'm trying to say. All I'm trying to say is this. Howie had a good draft last year. I think the one pick that was like kind of like, if it works out, then he really hit this draft well. That Dickerson pick was a big question mark because the guy was coming off an ACL. He had 2 knee injuries, 2 ankle injuries, and analytically and no, ceiling wise, he had a huge ceiling. He was the best center in college football the year prior. So I said, okay, if he works out, then great. He was thrown into that 49ers game, the home opener, as I think right guard after Brooks went out with an injury. He didn't really play good. And then they found that really good combination with him at left guard next to Mulata. So, I think it worked out. Look, I was looking at JOK in the second round. I was looking at Asante Samuel Jr. was on my board, man. I wanted that kid so badly, and he's doing so well for the Chargers right now. So, Howie's going to take his chances. There's a thing called a Howie pick in the draft. A Howie pick in the draft is a player coming off of injury that should have been drafted a lot higher, but has moved down because of that injury, and the Eagles will take a chance. We did it with Sidney Jones at 17 in the second round, which he was supposed to be the Eagles pick in the first round. So a lot of mistakes, and I understand, like, we could keep talking about, with some of these players and, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside and DK Metcalf and all this. And look, I'm happy for Devontae Smith. I'm totally happy with him.
Is Josh Sweat the only outlier here?
What?
I think so, because he was another one coming off of injury that they kind of took a gamble on because they were concerned with that knee.
Yeah, he was supposed to be a late first-round pick, and he had knee injuries. So, and Josh Sweat got better every single year. Now, after he got that contract locked in, I don't know, he kind of really didn't show. I mean, he, I think he had like 5-6 sacks. He's like, for what his contract is worth, he's like he's like a 7 to 9 sack type guy for his contract right now. So, I think he's going to play better. I think he is getting better. You have Brandon Graham that's coming off an Achilles, which, at old age and Achilles, it's not a great thing
34 years old, man.
That's what I'm saying. So there's nothing promising. I'm not even looking for sack numbers for any of these guys. Like, even with Brandon Graham, as long as he gets pressures, that's what he's about. So that's all I care about. Teron Jackson is just a rotational guy at this point. He made a couple good tackles, but I don't think he's anything amazing right now. So
he did pretty good for where he was selected, though. He filled his role.
What pick
at this
was he?
point in time?
What pick?
I think he was a 6th rounder with Marlon Tuipulotu, who they didn't see.
You could say his name. I can never say that guy's name.
Marlon Tuipulotu. But the Eagles didn't get to see him because he supposedly had a bad hamstring injury. And they still have high hopes on him at the D tackle spot for depth, but and let's get into the DE position. So we have something more positive to talk about than other than Mr. It's always him. So as we know, Kayvon Thibodeau has already had his top 30 visit with the Eagles, and remember we talked about this earlier in the stream. When these teams schedule top 30 visits with specific players, it's not necessarily just for intel. It's also the fact that there could be a possibility of this team getting this player. So so now your interest is continuing to spark on the number of scenarios that the Eagles could take here, especially with having 2 first-round picks, 2 third-round picks. They have an additional 2nd in 2024. They have the ammo to do what they want, but it's all in a part of if the gamble is right, and is the gamble right for this specific player. So as far as pass rusher goes for the Eagles, now, these Sam linebackers, you can probably put them in the category too, because I think Jesse Lacuda and D'Angelo Malone were in some of those, pass rusher type of situations where, they were dropped down near the line of scrimmage as an extra rusher. I think those two were involved in that as well. So you're looking at those two. You're looking at Thibodeau. You're looking at Arnold. I can't say his last name, so we'll put him at Arnold E. We'll say Arnold E. with the Penn State alumni that the Eagles have done their homework on. And you look at them, and you already have an idea on what they think of Derek Barnett, and what they think of Josh Sweat as that franchise staple piece going forward, as the eventual lead of the pass rusher group. And it's going to be a shame to see Brandon Graham go at whatever point he chooses. And it was already a damn shame seeing him go through that Achilles, because, boy, did they miss him the rest of the year. Oh, my good Lord. But, aside from that, D-end and DT are in the same position right now. Yeah, you got guys like Tyron Jackson was used in and out between a linebacker spot, kind of Jonathan Gannon kind of putting him in this hybrid type of role. Him and Patrick Johnson were sharing that same kind of assignment, and I guess you have to take this as a positive right now with these top 30 visits, and you look at it as the same way you do with receiver. The D-end position, it's not terrible, but it's not good either. But the premise is that Jonathan Gannon, as bad of a rap he had received last year, one of the things that he shared with Jim Schwartz was the fact that neither of them two had consistently the proper personnel to carry out their schemes, their philosophies to their full potential. So now when we talked about the offensive side of the ball and who we thought would be Nick Sirianni guys, with him being a former receiver, wide receivers coach between the Colts and Chargers and wherever, we got an idea at receiver. Now you're looking at D tackle and D end. And, well, linebacker would be for Nick Rallis, which I think he actually did a pretty good job for what he was working with, and him being as young as some of these players on the roster. He did a pretty good job outside of Jonathan Gannon. But you look at these guys on this list, and now is where you have to try and figure out who is a Jonathan Gannon type of guy. Well, you can argue that all four of these guys are. But if Thibodeau is not that guy, who of which would you say is a Jonathan Gannon type of player based on the top 30 visits that they've had? Or is there somebody outside of the top 30 who you would definitively say would be most beneficial in selecting in terms of their overall talent and how much they would help Jonathan Gannon in this defense?
I mean, it just depends. Like, you're just rushing. Like, if you just can't get the job done, you can't get it done. Like, it's,
yeah, sure.
You know what I mean? It's just a position where you're lined up and you just, you pin your ears back and you just attack. I mean,
yeah.
You know what I mean? So I wouldn't go too much into the metrics of like a Jonathan Gannon type guy. When it comes to linebacker or something like that, it's a different story. But when it comes to, you're looking for guys with coverage and stuff like that. But when it comes to defensive line, like, some of these guys just couldn't get it done. Like you said, Brandon Graham being gone, like, he was the voice of this defensive line and mostly this defense pretty much. And, it was a big loss. And it didn't help out Fletcher Cox at all at defensive tackle, because I think he's had probably one of the worst years that the past couple of years have been at a downward spiral. So,
yeah, what? If I rephrase, I guess it'd be easier to say, from a depth perspective, instead of saying Jonathan Gannon guy or of the likes, because because defensive end is it's not the deepest of an assignment. Yeah, you need to. Your skill set defines on how you're used in that scheme, and obviously you would know playing the position a long time ago, but nonetheless, I think I think it's more so from a depth perspective. And when we talk about depth more so pertains to the quality of players that you have on the roster, not the quantity. It's in this case, it's quality over quantity, because if it's the other way around, then you're just not building your team. You're just throwing guys on your roster for the sake of throwing guys, and you're really not improving. So that's where the confusion of the definition of depth takes place. So I would say, to rephrase, it's probably more about a depth perspective than a defensive coordinator's type of player.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about the depth and look, anybody, it's who you have lined up on which either side, and when it comes to it, it's more of a it's you can't just throw anybody there. You just can't. Every player has to complement each other. You have to balance out that defensive line. You can't make one side way too strong. You have to spread it out, and that's what it's going to come to. And and not having the linebackers blitzes and would help at least your middle pass rush. It would help somewhat. I think the adjustments have been probably the worst. I mean, I just thought not just defensively but offensively too. I mean, this has been a second half team defensively. I mean, to be honest with you, why are the Eagles respecting too many quarterbacks? Why can't they get a pass rush? I feel like Jonathan Gannon was playing his basic defense every half of each game, and then he made the changes. So why aren't you fixing those certain problems that you are having? You're respecting way too many quarterbacks. 68 quarterbacks, over 80% completion percentage. I mean, Derek Carr looked like Joe Montana, 31 for 34. I mean, it's you even Zach Wilson from the Jets. I mean, you even respected him for a good amount of that game, and just let you throw it all down our throats. It's just crazy.
I'll tell you what, I still can't get that Chargers game out of my head where you let Justin Herbert throw the party that he did on you. Almost a 90% completion percentage. 90. What the hell is that? That's where I always go back to that game and just wonder, what the hell were you thinking?
He doesn't have the players for this hybrid scheme that he wants. That he didn't have. He shouldn't have done it. He should have stuck to one. Stop disguising coverages, the soft zone coverage, taking corners off the ball 10, 15 yards. I mean, it's just you're just giving yards. Even the Kansas City game, that was definitely a winnable game. You let Tyreek Hill. You went off the line 10, 15 yards to Tyreek Hill. I mean, what are you doing? Crazy.
And, well, speaking of Tyreek Hill, I guess we got ourselves another gateway into this position. Well, one of the most important needs on this team yet again, and I think this would be the easiest way to cap off the stream, except for the spot that I saved for last, and I think you know where I'm going with that, because it'll leave everybody in a head scratcher. The biggest outlier that could change the aspect of how we completely think about this draft. But we're not going to get there just yet. But being that we went over the hour mark, I do appreciate you sticking around, Joey. I know we talked about it just being an hour, but when you ride a wave, you got to keep it going until the surfers got to come home, man. You got to keep it going. The entertainment is still there, as we've been fluctuating anywhere from 10 to 20 people in the stream right now, and
awesome.
It's a blessing. It's a blessing. So thank you everybody for your consistent viewership this evening. I really appreciate it. But nonetheless, let's get into one of the more spicy topics of discussion with this position that, again, how do the Eagles continue to be in such dire need of a corner when they just go patch job after patch job after patch job? And we just watched Steven Nelson go to the Texans on a 2-year deal. So now you don't have a definitive number 2 whatsoever. Well, aside the fact that, Steven Nelson was barely a number 2 with the amount of games and the amount of snaps that Jonathan Gannon schematically was protecting Steven Nelson because, well, as good, as physical and as competitive as he played, he just didn't have the speed to keep up with some of these receivers and be proficient when it came to coverage in that regard. So once again, we're leaving Big Play Slay on an island once more, and well, he doesn't deserve it to this point. The Eagles' only Pro Bowl corner. Now, granted, we do have to give some love to Avonte Maddox because he did earn that extension, but it's only because Slay had somewhat of a partner on the outside, and Maddox was not put out of position to get burnt game in and game out because that's not his natural spot. That's the only reason Maddox played as good as he did, aside from those instances where he played safety pretty well towards his rookie season under Jim Schwartz. I thought that was pretty impressive myself. But corner, oh man, Sauce Gardner was already here, paid a visit to Philly. Oh my goodness, what I would do to have that guy playing that position on this football team.
Yeah.
And even if it wasn't him in the first round, and yeah, we can throw Derek Stingley Jr. in there if we want, but he was not a top 30 visit. So we have to go on the concrete intel, regardless of with you saying that some of the selections the Eagles have made in the past weren't necessarily top 30 visits. And well, most of these guys pertain to the early first, late first, early second round. So they're towards the top of the list. But as we know, Sauce Gardner was one of those guys. He is regarded as not just the best corner in this class, but one of the best talents overall. I mean, the kid plays like he has no weaknesses whatsoever. So you can imagine if you pair him with Darius Slay and even I think of this scenario too. Just because you get a guy like Sauce Gardner, I don't know if it makes it I don't know if it moves the needle to which, okay, we got our guy, we're in a safer position where we feel that it's okay to move on from Slay. I personally think that would be a mistake for the Eagles to do until they get at least 2 or maybe 3 outside corners that are capable of starting.
True.
So I don't think it would be in the best interest of the Eagles to move on from Slay when his contract expires this year, because he could very well earn another extension with this football team and play quality football until he's about 33. And I think that's the safe age when the Eagles can pull the plug, because by then Sauce Gardner would transition to being that guy that offenses have to scheme around, but Slay's still just as good to where he is not a primary weakness in the secondary. So the Eagles in that regard, they have to be careful. And it all boils down to who they select in this draft. Now there is a gap between a guy like Sauce Gardner and your second selection, who is also mine. I did a video on him already. Andrew Booth Jr. out of Clemson. I think Andrew provides a lot of benefits for the secondary. He's good, but not great in zone. Zone is the area of his game where he needs to clean up a little bit. It's more anticipation. I was trying to say the longer version of it.
Right.
Anticipatory, I think, is how it's pronounced. But but his anticipation, it's more of his anticipation than it is like footwork or staring down the quarterback for too long, stuff like that. It's anticipation and its reaction with him in terms of zone. Man coverage, he's better at.
Yeah.
And for how many years have we asked for this defensive coordinator, whether it was Schwartz or Jonathan Gannon to this point, Stop playing these guys millions of yards off of their receiver. Let them get in. Let him get in the guy's face, disrupt his route, put some pressure on the quarterback. That the quarterback has to hold the ball a little longer. Like, how many games have we seen over the last couple of years where these quarterbacks are getting the balls thrown in under 3 seconds because we're leaving their pass targets wide open all the time? Because the D coordinator is either too afraid to play man or press coverage, or he doesn't have the talent capable of achieving what he ultimately wants to do. And now this class, the Eagles are in a prime position to wash away a lot of those issues. And, Sauce Gardner, Stingley, and Andrew Booth can really wipe the slate clean, and you can't go wrong with either one of those three.
No, you can't. I mean, not even with Sauce. It's everything you said plus his skill set, being a lengthy corner and always getting his hands on the football and just being the ball hawk that he is and not giving up a touchdown last year. And I mean, Sauce coming to the Eagles would be just imagine the mentorship that he would get, like with Slay still in the building, what he would get from that guy, and obviously transcending him to be that number one guy in the future once Slay is done. I think would be perfect. I think it would be one of the most inviting. Probably it would interest him so much to come here and to be, like I said, mentored by a big play Slay and just what he could learn already on top of his skill set that he already has already.
You know what? Denard Wilson's a pretty good secondaries coach too. I'm satisfied with him so far. He's done a pretty good job.
And I think I don't know if that's Gannon's guy from the Colts. I'm not sure.
Jets guy, I believe.
It's a Jets dude.
I believe so. Yeah, I think he came. I think he came over from the Jets.
So even going into this draft, like, and Booth, I really like, and that's why, like, Gannon really being non-aggressive with these cornerbacks, like go up to the line and like be aggressive, take these wide receivers off their route, get physical off the line. But he's so afraid of giving up that big play. He's got to stop doing that.
There's just no challenge. No. You're not offering any sort of challenge. Beat me with your playmakers. You're asking yourself to get beat. You're not asking them to beat you by giving them a challenge. It just doesn't make sense at times. But if you're in a position where you don't have the personnel to offer that challenge, then you're in a lose-lose situation, and you're just gonna have to bite the bullet. Continue to bite the bullet until you use the field to your advantage when that team is already in the red zone, and you're using the field to condense what they can do from a play calling standpoint. And that's when it's just too late. You want to do your damage early, not late.
No, I agree. I agree. I mean, you're making yourself look weak. You're making yourself look scared. And that's how it looks. And they do it every game, like that soft zone coverage where they just stand there and just let tight ends or receivers just run by them and get those big chunk yards. That I don't even get it. I do not get that soft zone coverage. I really don't.
Even the tight ends.
You don't. It makes no sense to me, dude.
Oh man, but yeah, no, I mean, yeah, these corners in the first, you can't go wrong with either one of them. They're still quality guys that could be there in the second round. But as of right now, we can only base on who the Eagles brought in terms of their top 30. Like those are the priority guys that they're going to have towards the top of their board. And as we all know, that's where we're going to be holding our breath the most, the first through the third round, because, well, I mean, Howie Roseman's just upside down with this. He always seems to hit pretty good on the late rounders, but he can't execute it when it comes to the earlier picks,
right,
that have the more important value in terms of building your football team. And yeah, while he has hit on some before, it was few and far between. There's too many.
What do you call a successful draft for Howie this year? How many players does he have to hit on for you to be satisfied?
I don't know. I don't know if it's how many he has to hit on. All of them. That's the safest bet. The safest bet is saying all of them. But to me, I keep looking at this as you need to be pretty darn good in rounds 1 through 3 for me to deem you having a successful draft, because I can live with 4 through 7 on the lower end, because you're not worried about those guys as much, depending on the position that you're drafting them at, because it's all the determination of depth of what you have on your roster right now. For me, you have to knock it out of the park with the first through the third rounds, because like you said, this team is very young right now, including the coaching staff. There's, it's between age and it's between experience. So when you're in a spot where you're trying to get younger, this is where the emphasis takes over, that these first round selections are even more critical than they were in previous years, because you don't want to be in a situation where some of these guys that you're taking are, they're developing longer than anticipated, and now you're just setting yourself back for the next couple of draft classes. And you're thinking, well, we were supposed to be competitive this year, and this happened and it got in the way. And you don't want to get stuck in that repetitive cycle of being just a wild card team, or just being one of those consistent teams that win the division but never seem to make it to the NFC Championship game. Dallas Cowboys. Sorry. Oh my God. Sorry.
Yeah, that's definitely a team waiting to hear about. These.
I had to get. I'm sorry. I had to get it in there, but I had to get. I'm sorry. We had to get in there, but yes. But
I never asked you though about what did you think of the Eagles Saints trade in general? Just that trade, like your first reaction, maybe if it changed over time.
I thought, initially I thought, well, okay. I didn't have a problem with it whatsoever. I mean, it just makes sense. It makes sense for the long run. Especially the fact with Howie getting this extension, he understands that this isn't a 1-year process, and he wants to stretch it across multiple years. You don't build an entire football team in a single year, especially depending on the quality of the prospects coming out of the draft. As we see with this year, for example, quarterback isn't very strong. That's not going to happen until the next 2 draft classes. So, and again, there's another segue. This is another segue into the final topic. But yeah, to answer your question, I had absolutely no problem whatsoever with what the Eagles did with the Saints. Everybody was talking about, the Saints got fleeced and yada yada. Well, at the same time, yeah, you can say they got fleeced, but at the same time, the Saints, to even do a trade like this, both parties have to be comfortable with what they're doing. So the Saints kind of knew what they were doing in executing this trade with Philly. So it's just for you to decide, based on your opinion on what ultimately happened. But a lot of it is going to be dictated on who those selections are for that specific team. That's the topper in all of this. Yeah, you can say it was a great trade at the end. You can say it's a great trade all you want, but it's how you utilize those extra selections that you received at the end of the time.
I think that trade for us was long term. That for them it was something right now, because they had 2 first-round picks. They got 16, 19, and now they can either draft a quarterback or, obviously with Jameson Williams still being there, they need to upgrade some positions. So they have ours is more of a long-term thing. So if Jalen Hurts doesn't work out, they have a assurance that they have picks for next year. They got 2 first-round picks next year, and on top of that, they got a second-round pick for 24. So on top of, I thought what really put the icing on the cake, it's an A- trade for me, because you got an extra third, which is huge. Everyone's like, oh, okay, that's a big ammo pick you could use to move up. that pick is a good value pick. You have 2 third-rounders now, and then the 7th is just a 7th. But I mean, if the Eagles were able to get a second round out of that on top, I mean, if the Eagles were to get a second round, that'd be an A+. But I was totally fine with it. There was actually some Eagles fans that actually thought we were going to draft 3 guys in the first round. I said since the beginning of all this, after we got that pick, I was like, it's not going to happen. It is not going to happen. We're not drafting 3 guys in the first round. Even if we had the quarterback, I still think we would have traded back. You always want to have more picks for next year. You always want to have more picks.
Think of this, everybody. The Eagles have had only 2 first-round picks twice in 20 years.
It's crazy.
That tells you right there just the inconsistency of opportunity of having 2 first-rounders and up until the point of the selections, how many they're going to have left. So before we get into the last topic here, and I want to run this by you real quick in the fact that, there's been multiple trade scenarios in terms of the draft going on. And, there's instances where people are actually okay with us trading and using our second rounder this year as part of any package whatsoever. I, for one, am somewhat opposed to it because you look at the gap between 18 and then our earliest third rounder, I think, is 85. I mean, when you're doing all this homework in terms of these prospects, to me, I felt that if you were to get rid of 51, the gap from 18 to 85 is just too large to me. In taking a risk like that, especially if the talent level, with these prospects has a severe drop off, if a lot of who you had on your board is not there anymore. So would you where would you be in terms of if the Eagles ended up getting rid of their only second round pick? Or would you understand depending on circumstance, or are you completely against it?
You're talking like if we took that second round to trade up, like we used that as a piece to trade up in the draft, or are you saying just the trade back with 18?
I mean, that's completely now. With you mentioning that, I think it's completely situational. I think it would ultimately depend on who the player is that they trade up to get. So I guess depending on circumstances. I mean, overall, I just don't like the gap between 18 and 85. That's just me. So.
Yeah, I don't think they're using 3 fifth-round picks in this draft. I think there'll be some compensation. You have enough compensation to move back into the first round. 100%. I think they could get that second, maybe a fifth, and maybe a 5. I don't know. They could move up in the late first round if there's a player that another player that they want to get. I mean, it's they couldn't do it. Like I said, there's no drop off. I think there's a lot of good players that are going to pass us from 18 all the way to 51. It's a big gap, and I don't think the Eagles are sitting at 51 right now. I don't think they are. I think they're going to try to at least move up a little bit, whether it's late first to a much early second, if that's the case. So Eagles have picks next year. They have, picks this year, obviously. So I think there's a good shot that Howie's not done yet. He's far from done when it comes to making moves.
And it would be nice, even if they did make the decision to trade up, that they would maintain at least 15 or 18. I would think it would take 15 in a package to move up. And it would be, I think it would be the most optimal scenario that they managed to hold on to 18, but I don't know what the asking price would be to move up to, let's just say with the Panthers scenario, would it end up taking 15 and 18 to move up that much? No. I don't necessarily think so. So you would have to imagine that would be the ultimate scenario where the Eagles would not only trade up, but they would actually manage to hold on to one of their firsts at the same time.
I think because of the quarterbacks in this draft and how I just feel like because of quarterbacks and it's not a strong market that more teams in the top 10 are wanting to trade back than really, I think there's more teams wanting to trade up than and teams wanting to trade back at the same time. I just feel like it's not going to cost much. If you want to move up to 6, I'd say you give the 18 a third, a fifth, you could give away a player or another pick, maybe for next year. I don't know. I mean, I'd be totally fine with that. I think that's fair enough. I don't think it's going to cost you that much. Now, if you go if you want to trade up to number 3 overall, just say you don't trust the Jets or the Giants, you want to get sauced that badly or something like that. You move up to 3 with the Texans. It might cost you a little extra. Will that second round pick come into, contention? I don't know. But 6, I think, is more capable of, you don't have to give up that much. I don't think so.
Oh, especially when it comes to the Giants. I know we want to poo-poo them all we want right now. But I know we want to, and I don't know, because you want to say that there's still uncertainty at that quarterback position, but when you manage to combine Brian Dable with Mike Kafka, what they could do for a quarterback over there, I mean, I'm warning you right now. I don't think that they're going to go through another slump. They can't afford to do that, especially with the firepower that they brought in at that and the coaching staff.
Yeah, like Martindale at defensive coordinator was with the Ravens for years. They got some good coaches over there. The coaches are good. But the problem is they got no second. They don't have another first round pick for next year. So they're putting too much. If they draft 2 players in the top 10, they're stupid for doing it, because
it's a huge gamble.
They trust in Daniel Jones that much. I mean, I think he's going to be the worst quarterback this year. I think he's going to be the worst quarterback this year. I mean, plus all those contracts, on paper last year when the Giants were so overrated, they looked good on paper. They signed all these contracts. They pretty much had 2 number 2 wide receivers and Galladay and having Shepard there. You know what I mean? So, I mean, they still need offense. I could see them going offensive line. I could see them going for Neal if the Texans don't get him at 3. I could see them going for Kayvon because they need defensive end, and Bradbury could be traded any second. I mean, they still need, Adoree Jackson got paid way too much money. I mean, he's all right. But when we wanted him, he's all right, but he ain't spectacular or anything like that. So the Giants are taking a big gamble this year. Gamble if they pick with those 2 picks. They better trade back, because they're gonna make a big mistake if they don't.
Yeah, I mean, you can look at it this way. Yeah, they're star-studded and they're star-studded in that coaching staff. But if your personnel doesn't match what you're bringing in as far as coaches, how do you weigh the limit? How do you weigh the limitations?
And that could be another team that could be another team that's got a good coaching staff. But Gettleman's not I don't think he's a great GM at all. Yeah. I mean, he just throws money at players. I mean, he's not a great GM in my opinion. And how much does John Mara have say in what they do over there too? So I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I live in New York my whole life, and I don't even know much about who's in charge with the Giants and who's in charge of what. So no idea. Thank God I don't even care. As long as they screw up, that's all that matters.
All we know is I think the Eagles are well on their way to a little bit better stability, with Washington in shambles, with number 11 over there now, and Dallas is in shambles because of the lack of moves they're making and getting stuffed by Randy Gregory, and now Dallas fans talking about that Dak got overpaid and they want to get rid of him now, and we could do so much better. Oh my goodness. So that's all I know. But to put a bow on episode 13 of Touchdown Talk, which has really been kick-ass since we've gone an extra 40 minutes on this, and really going in depth with our Philadelphia Eagles and just a little bit of the NFC East for what it's worth, and us trying to be the top dogs again. All this could very well change because of
we're not going to be right. No, it always the draft every year. I don't believe in mock drafts. I watch them every day, but I'm always but then I'm it probably won't happen. So I'm just whatever.
Well, one top 30 visit on this list, and you can take this with a grain of salt. This all depends how deep you read into it. It all depends. But the Eagles hosted Matt Corral, a quarterback, for a top 30 visit, who's also projected to go in the second round. Now, Eagles, as of right now, only have 1 second-round pick. And do we want to say the famous 2 words at this moment in time? I don't know. I don't know, but
I don't care for it. Don't even say it. I don't care for it. Do not give a flying crap about that stupid crap that he said.
Oh my! So
smoke screen. There's smoke screen written all over that. Look, you're not keeping 3 quarterbacks on this roster this year. That's Eagles Saints trade kind of solidified that they're keeping Jalen Hurts this year. And if he doesn't pan out, they're going after a quarterback next year. If they get Matt Corral, okay, it's just going to be a wasted pick in that second round. It's just going to be a wasted pick. If they get him outside, if you want to go get after Carson Strong in the 3rd round or something like that, I'm totally fine. Or any quarterback outside the first 2 rounds, I'm fine with it. But if they draft Matt Corral, Minshew, there's already something brewing with Minshew on the table, because I think Minshew will be an after the draft type trade, because he could start for a team right now. I think he's an above average backup quarterback, and I think he only costs a little over $900,000 for the year. He's dirt cheap, so it's a win-win for us. They're going to get productivity, and they're going to get someone that's cheap for the year. So please do not.
The only thing that I could paint from this right now is the fact that the Eagles could be looking at this as an opportunity to say, okay, Minshew is in the last year of his rookie deal. We don't necessarily want to be in a position to re-sign him to a deal to where we're battling in terms of negotiations. Mm-hmm. We might as well let him go elsewhere and have an opportunity to start, as the fact that he's already voiced that concern at one point in time last season. While Hurts was the starter and there was points where he was struggling a little bit, Minshew comes in and has a pretty good game against the Jets, albeit against the Jets. And that really excuse me, that really sparked a lot of him wanting to, put a better fight for this starting job. And now the only thing that this Matt Corral stuff is telling me, outside of them doing this sort of intel and smokescreen, whatever you want to call it, the only other thing it tells me is that, well, maybe they're trying to knock out 2 birds with 1 stone. That they can upgrade at the backup spot, for 1, and 2, Corral would be cheaper than trying to re-sign Minshew after his rookie contract expires. But at the second round, that doesn't make sense whatsoever, because last year or the year before, what were we saying about Jalen Hurts? It was a wasted pick in the second round. He was projected to be a 4th rounder.
He wasn't supposed to start. He wasn't even supposed to start.
Yes. Now, like, why are the Eagles doing this? Like, why would you put it out? Why would you put it out there and let the carousel spin one more lap?
I think the Super Bowl did that, because it's like, oh, well, Nick Foles came in, won a Super Bowl. Let's just try to get as many quarterbacks in this building as possible. That's going to fit. It's really stupid, because I feel like it's going to be a quarterback controversy, which I don't think anything affects Jalen Hurts mindset wise. I don't think he gives a crap anyway. But when it comes down to it, like, I just don't want to waste a pick with a quarterback. Look, if they drafted 2 studs in the first round and then they went for quarterback, I'd be like, at least they drafted 2 guys in the first round that are great. But then I'll be like really pissed off, because now it's like, okay, well, they're going to get they're going to get a draft pick for Gardner Minshew, and Matt Corral's just going to sit for a whole year. And then what happens? You made the trade. Like, there's way too much that we need right now with this roster. I said, keep Jalen Hurts this year, build your roster. So what if you get a defensive tackle from Georgia and a wide receiver in the first round? What if there's another position you want? You're going to go waste on the quarterback? Yeah. Why even make the Eagles Saints trade? Why even trade with the Saints for those picks next year? If you're just going to draft, like, if you're already are not already enough, they're not building around Jalen Hurts as it is right now, and you're going to go get a quarterback right now and just have him here for a year? And then what if Hurts doesn't work out? Now we got to worry about, are they going quarterback next year because Matt Corral's sitting there? It's just going to be ridiculous. It's
too much. It's too much brain pain to analyze this kind of conversation. It really is. Like, turn the spin cycle off already, okay?
But at the end of the day, like, they have to make things look like the way they are. Like, because the Eagles have so many of these guys on pre-draft visits, does it mean that they're interested in all these guys, or do they bring some guys in just for doing their due diligence to make other GMs feel like they are going to go a certain position? I really don't know. But you made this trade with the Saints to get quarterback compensation for next year. So you bring Matt Corral in, you trade Minshew, and then you go into the next season and change. Jalen Hurts plays like crap. You go into 2023, and all of a sudden it's like, why is Matt Corral here? Like, why?
There's only two things that I can point to with this visit that pertains to Jalen Hurts in a way. One, they could very well use Corral as part of a external evaluation on where they think Hurts is right now as a quarterback. And if there's anything that Corral does better than Hurts, that may justify selecting Corral. That's one of the only things I can think of. The second thing I can think of is just evaluating Corral as a quarterback in this class, and if he is worth a second rounder, and if we can find anyone equivalent to his skill set later in the draft that could be a potential upgrade over Minshew, that will also not be a threat. Well, I can't believe we're saying this in the conversation of Jalen Hurts, because Hurts intangibly is better than we know who that used to be this franchise guy here. But you know where I'm going with it. That, I think we both feel that no matter who they bring in behind Hurts is not going to feel threatened, because he's just not that kind of guy mentally. But as an organization, you can't do that to somebody that you're putting all your eggs into their basket at the same time. So again, I
want to twist my own head off, Lindsay. I want to twist my own head off from just. We're supposed to end this on a good note, bro, not a bad note, not a depressing note. You could have brought this up at the beginning of the damn stream.
Well, I mean, as the saying says, all good things must come to an end. And unfortunately, Howie Roseman is still our GM that could very well F this whole draft up by giving Matt Corral a visit and really stirring up Eagles fans into thinking the worst, like the worst of the worst that could possibly happen. But one thing I wanted to do, because I did not want to I know Team Alert asked this question a lot earlier in the stream, so I don't want to forget about it or ignore it. He's asking about the Deebo Samuel situation and whether or not the Eagles would have interest in him and or Kyler Murray. Me personally, I don't think the Eagles are in a specific structure to want to consider those two kinds of interactions to where they may trade for one of those players and or it would be a trade for one of those. I just don't think we're in that position, and it completely goes against the mentality of how you were talking about. The entire reason of the trade with the Saints was to, carry this team building down the road. So if you're just going to do that trade eventually to give up those same assets for a player right now and have to pay that player at the same time, it's more counterproductive to me.
So, God, I don't know. Like at this point, like I can see how he monitoring situations. Like I've thought that he was monitoring the Deshaun Watson situation, Russell Wilson. I mean, it's just monitoring. Like I think Kyle Murray will get what he wants sooner or later. I mean, maybe he won't. I don't know, but it's too late right now to like even be considering a trade like a couple weeks before the draft. And I just think there's nothing. I think Kyle Murray will figure it out. I think they'll figure it out over in Arizona what they're doing, but we'll see. Debo is a different story just because Debo is, he apparently he wants 24 plus. I actually surprised. I thought that maybe he would want more because he's a wide back. He's a running back and a wide receiver. I think he thinks he's at the top level of he's as valued as much as a quarterback in his own eyes, which I don't blame him because he's one of the best. He's at least a top 3 receiver in my opinion because Debo just brings a lot more to the table to just getting the ball in his hands. The guy can be a running back for you. So the Eagles have passed on so much free agency wise. Not getting, making these trades for AJ Brown or DK Metcalf or anything. I think it's done. I mean, I don't think the Eagles make a push for any of this at all.
Like, would you even value Debo higher than Devontae Adams or Cooper Kupp at this point in time? I personally can't go there.
No, it's because you have to, and plus if you bring him in, you got to use him a certain way. Like if you don't use him, you're wasting money. You're gonna waste money if you bring him in here. You don't use him the right way.
I mean, San Fran. Are they not pure West Coast? And Sirianni is a hybrid of a West Coast type of system. I mean, sure, with that type of player, you're going to scheme around that type of player, but I just don't think we're in a position to make that kind of a jump right now.
No, and I think Debo will be like the number 6 receiver because that's where we're kind of treating Devontae Smith like a number 3 more than a number 1 right now. It's just Shane Steichen is definitely on the hot seat and Gannon's on the hot seat. Those are my 2 hot seat candidates right now. Shane Steichen, it's play design. It's when his quarterback is struggling, he's not helping his quarterback. Give it to the right guy. Devontae Smith, I think crap is going to boil over because going up to Sirianni at the last play of the game, give me the ball. Doesn't give him the ball. Yeah. They don't give him the ball until a minute 14 left in that Tampa game. What number 1 receiver in your right mind in a playoff game gets the ball at the end? And he had 60 yards easily. But you want to go into that Cowboys game and you want to force him to get the ball because you need him to break Deshaun Jackson's rookie record. You'll give him the ball then. Yeah, let's pass Devontae Smith every single play. But why don't they do that during the season? Why is Quez not getting more catches? Quez could have easily had 1,000 yards this year, 100 as a 5th, 6th round pick. Come on now. And Jalen Reagor gets to start every game and Greg Ward gets to sit on the bench. Come on now. I could break this mic right now. I'm so mad. I can't stand this crap, dude. I can't stand it. Fucking God. I hate this team. I really hate it.
I have to ask though, because of the fact that it hasn't happened very often, where do you put, or where do you lay, like how much responsibility do you also lay at the feet of Aaron Moorhead though in terms of the receivers? Like how much impact or not has he had with the regression of Jalen Reagor, the underutilization of Arcega-Whiteside, limiting him to a blocker, not putting Greg Ward in certain situations? I mean, something has to happen in terms of not just play calling but coaching at the same time. I mean, I don't. It's too head scratching.
It's Howie Roseman trying to justify these picks. That's all it is. JJ on the field makes absolutely no sense. Why the hell, do you have a guy on the field that's just there to block with 3 receptions after getting like a few receptions? Like, God damn, he's slower than a tight end. I mean, that's how slow he is. He shouldn't even be a wide receiver at this point. So I'm trying to figure out, like, when you have a guy on the field that's just blocking, when you have a guy that's just blocking, aren't you making it more obvious, like what he's going to do on the field because he's not getting the ball? It's a wasted roster. It's a waste. Him being on the field is a waste. It's just a total waste.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping because they add another receiver in this draft, they bring in Pascal in the building. Okay. I think JJ is going to be on the bubble. I think he will be on the bubble. I think JJ will finally actually be out the door. I think it might happen. Reagor, if they get a trade partner, trade him for I don't care if it's a 7th round. I don't care if it's for nothing. Just get him out of here. And on top of everything else, you know what? Those scrimmages we have in the stop with the scrimmages. Stop treating scrimmages. Stop saying games are like scrimmages. You're treating scrimmages like they're actual games because that is like Reagor. What happened was Reagor got yelled at practice by Nick. So last offseason, Reagor got yelled at middle of practice, and then he started to like turn around. He was getting these one-handed catches, and he was like, he was in the end zone. He was doing all this crap every single week, and these scrimmages, he was just balling out. We're saying Reagor's going to turn around. He's going to turn around. It's going to happen. And then he gets 2 touchdowns, not even like 300 yards. I mean, Henry Ruggs is in prison and he has more yards since week 8 of this. I mean, I'm not trying to make a joke about it, but it's bad. And you are being treated like the number 1 receiver and hasn't even flashed. And look, I will give Reagor a little credit, and it's really hard for me to say because I think Jalen Hurts has screwed up a lot of passes for Reagor. I think there was a lot of passes he could have got to Reagor, but at the same time, Reagor the less time Reagor has to think on punt returns, the better he plays. The more space he has on punt returns, the worse he is. His vision's even worse. But on the times he got those really like close punts, he ran 2 times really well. So it's when you say Aaron Moorhead, there's only so much he's not playing these guys on the field. He's not design, route combinations. Like I can only put so much on him. Now, if the receivers, do I think they need maybe a harder coach at receiver? Maybe need to like tune these guys. Like this ain't no joke. Like you guys are going to play to how I want you to play. And that's how it's going to be. Is Aaron Moorhead too friendly? I don't know. You know what I mean? I have no idea. But as we noticed this whole offseason, they haven't changed any of the coaches because they're not going to change anything this year. They're keeping everything the same until the Hurts thing, especially offensively with Jalen Hurts. They're not changing any coaches. They're keeping everything the same because they don't want to deal with bringing somebody, some fresh meat in here. So,
I mean, to an extent, you can't continue to you can't continue to show dysfunction in like the instability of maintaining the same coaching staff year after year because it's just like bringing in players that aren't good enough. You're not progressing with continuing to bring in coach after coach, and these players have to get used to that coach's philosophies, and they're starting from scratch. They're starting from scratch again, and and it's just a big mess. Now that we're finally developing developing some sort of retaining these guys on the coaching staff, now you feel that you can start to build something, but just at the same time, there's been too many boneheaded decisions and just poor excution.
Boneheaded. That's an understatement. That's an understatement. But hey,
we did not leave on a good note. I'm trying to be nice.
No,
I'm trying to be nice.
I'm like stressed out right now. I'm really stressed right now.
Run through a wall right to Novacare.
No, I will protest, bro. I will protest a better pick in this draft.
Man,
that's what I will protest. If they look at this point, I will go to the low of lows and say, as long as the first round is like, I really need like two big picks. Like, that's what I need. Like, I need to hear a name and be like, oh, I need to just be like, oh my God, it's a name I've heard of. It's a name. It's a producing name. It's a big name. I mean, it's something that's just going to put a smile on my face, just a little bit of a smile, just something that's just going to, throw me up and just to get the job done. That first round is just, I want more productive players out of this draft. I understand. It's just I'm going off of last year's draft and saying that I think it was a good draft, and I think he plus with more draft capital and the trades that he has done, it's great. I mean, the trades are his bread and butter, and I think more trades are going to come within this draft, and I'm excited, dude. Like I really am. Like I feel like we're going to go in the right direction. And once we get the training camp and we see how the roster's starting to look and JJ's being phased out and they're starting to like get their shit together, then I feel like we're going to go somewhere. I feel like, look, I'm not looking for a Super Bowl this year. I'm not thinking I think this is a very weak division. I don't think any team upgraded tremendously from free agency, and we'll see how the draft goes. I think the Eagles can win the East this year. I think they can get into the playoffs, and hey, if they can win a playoff game, God bless them. But if they can't, at least we know we're going in the right direction. I think the first step to it is this quarterback, and I think that's where it's gonna, we'll see from there.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be satisfied with last year's class, especially when you bring it up, because at some capacity, each player in some capacity, the majority of the players, minus Tui Pelotu, I think, but the majority of them actually played some in some capacity significant snaps during the regular season. Every one of those players got playing time on the football field in the regular season. So you gotta be happy with that. Even if they went through positional changes, like everybody was high on Jacoby Stevens when we thought he was a steal in the later selections. I think he was a sixth or a seventh round pick. Everyone thought he was a steal because he was a LSU product, and he had the captain number and all that, but he made the transition from safety to linebacker, and here and there, we didn't see him all that much, but you can't ask for much more if you're getting production out of the majority of your draft class, and we can only ask for that, and try and go 2 for 2, 1 year after the other. So to finally put a bow on this show of Touchdown Talk, which I got to tell you, Joey, even after 2 hours, viewership has been consistent the whole way through. Anywhere from 15 to 20.
Thank you.
Big appreciation to everybody for sticking around that long into listening to two guys babble on about what we just wish for that the Eagles would do for this draft class, just the same way that we did for last year. It's an absolute blessing. We appreciate it. But before we're
not going to talk about Malik Willis or Kenny Pickett. We're not going to talk about them. No, kidding. Please don't. I don't even want to go through it. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Matt Corral was enough, and that's second round. Matt Corral is enough.
I don't want to go any further than that. I think we're good. I don't want to go any further than that.
But now we're not going to do all good things come to an end, because we're going to leave on a positive note here. We're going to do that. So to do so, going back to the first round, your preference in how those 2 first-round picks are divided, if we keep them. Are you going offense and defense and splitting the selection on both sides of the football, or are you double-dipping on a specific side, and why?
I'm double-dipping on defense.
Or is best player available going to ultimately determine that?
I think whether you go need or best player available, I don't think it's going to matter with those 2 picks, because there's going to be a lot of good players there. So if it's me, I would double dip at defense. But because the Eagles didn't get a veteran receiver, they didn't add a weapon, and the Calvin Ridley thing fell apart, I feel like it's not going to go that way. And I feel like I'm like 50-50 on, because I feel like they have to go that way. Like, oh, do we really need a number 1 receiver? Like, a receiver in the first round, I'm like, not really. I think there's more receivers in the second round, but it's hard for me to like But then I think about it, if we sign Tyrann Mathieu and like we can add more to it, like you get your number one corner and you get a future defensive tackle that's going to be a wrecking ball. Like get this defense to what it once was. And hell, if you only need to suffer one more year with Jonathan Gannon, I'm totally fine with that, and get a new coach in here that's going to know how to use these guys and to get out of this hybrid scheme or whatever they're trying to do if it doesn't work out after this year. I would double dip at the defense. I think they finally have to get their corner of the future. I really do. And to learn from Big Play Slay. And I think they have to go get someone on the defensive line, man. I think they need to add another future piece because, it's Fletch being gone this year. I'm not even talking about who's going to be resigned. Fletch is gone after this year. Hargrave is gone after this year. Graham is coming off an Achilles. Barnett's just a knucklehead. Teron Jackson's, a flash, but has played okay to be a rotation. Josh Wett needs to play better. This defensive line is not – it needs more. It just needs more. And if Howie likes the trenches, I'd be shocked if he doesn't go trenches in the first round. I'd be shocked. But I want defensive tackle, cornerback, boom, build that defense up.
Yeah.
Build it up.
Yeah, so I mean, we're primarily on the same page with this. I'm a big advocate right now for double dipping on defense. I mean, this is especially for the simple fact that the Eagles have been an advertisement of defense in this division for how many years? Like we have. That Philly grit, that Philly toughness, a lot of it was associated to the defense. It's about time that you properly address that side of the ball. Go get your guys and just be an intimidation factor again. And we get it. It's out in the quarterback position is just it's another topic for another day. Let's
I talk about it every day, so it's just to the point where I'm just like
there's too much there's too much of beating the dead horse, broken record, whatever. But I'm primarily on the same page as you. I'm going edge rush. I'm going corner than edge rusher. I've only done a couple of mocks myself, and just about every time, a guy like Andrew Booth and Carl Aftis were both available in my lap for the taking at 15 and 18, and I felt very comfortable taking those two because I knew that there were still going to be receivers available in the second round, and in that second round, I took David Bell because he was a perfect complimentary as a 50-50 guy to where if Goddard is one of your primary pass catchers next to Devontae Smith, and as we have known ever since Ertz was gone, he has been victimed to double teams. So you want another guy, to be one of those those statues, to be like a moving statue in the intermediate and the short game of the field. If you need a quick first down and you can throw him the ball, only where he can get it away from the DBs. Right. That would be an awesome target to have, unless you want to be guns blazing and throw rockets down the field, which Jalen Hurts is capable of. He's just not very consistent with it. So, options are wide open on the table right now, and it's all a matter in putting our trust in Howie Roseman again. I went from positive to negative. Damn it!
All right, it's all right. It is what it is.
I did it again. But oh man, I'll tell you what. It's still happened, man. I think that's going to have to do it. I mean, we can go for another 2 hours, and
most likely.
I mean, we could go another 2 hours and still be as successful as a stream as we were. I mean, this was for episode 2 of having you on the channel. This was absolutely fantastic. I
was
personally,
great.
I personally think I did a little bit better in hosting it myself. I think I had too much of a nervousness the first time. I haven't had
Why be
somebody on my
nervous, man?
channel as big as you were, and a lot of those nerves went away just in the veteranship of me developing my channel on here as a content creator. And again, I can't thank you enough for another opportunity and hanging out with me over here. And I'm very grateful to everybody that has stopped by and listened
Definitely.
to us consistently for a 2-hour show. I know that's a lot of time to give in your everyday lives, especially on a Thursday night when the week isn't over. Some of you go to work tomorrow, but it is a big, well, then again, it's Easter weekend, so a lot of people probably have off for Good Friday. But nonetheless, if it wasn't a holiday weekend, big thank you to everybody that has stuck around for as long as you guys did for episode 13, the revival of Touchdown Talk with myself, Lindy Endzone for the touchdown, taking the lead for the Eagles, one video at a time. And Shake Squad, stand up. Joey Shakes joining me in this one. Again, a big thank you for your contributions and your great insight. And really, we were on the same page with a lot of what we talked about.
Yeah, no, it's because there's a lot of obvious things coming out of this draft and what we're going to be seeing in this draft and what we want. And I mean, there's a lot of good players, so we'll probably agree on a lot of things. I mean, it's not a bad thing to disagree. Sometimes it's boring when we agree on too many things, but it's nice to have, different opinions. But this chat was great today. I've been reading everything. Yeah. Everybody's been fantastic. Make sure you subscribe to Lindy and whoever's new or whoever's coming in from my channel as well. Definitely subscribe. He's working at the Gauntlet, podcast as well with Philly Jim and stuff, and he's doing a good job. So I'm glad Lindy's back, because when Lindy was gone, I was like kind of shocked. You know what I mean? But it's always want to upgrade your channel and do a good job. You're doing a good job now. So we'll definitely get together after the draft to go over everything. Good argument. So
long as a quarterback is not involved,
right?
So long as the quarterback, so long as Matt Corral is not an Eagle.
I don't know what's in store with me draft night. I'll be streaming the draft with Philly 500 on both. We'll be streaming from both channels, and I don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be some really bad words might be coming out, so I don't know. Can't promise it's going to be PG, but we'll see.
I guess it's just to ask that you guys would get just as excited as you did last year when Devontae Smith was selected.
Oh man!
Wow. I mean, to mimic that kind of moment again. I mean, oh my goodness, what it would do for the morale of the fan base.
But I'm telling you right now, we get sauced, or if we get one of those Georgia defensive linemen, I am gonna, my chair will be up in the air. This chair will be up in the air, putting a hole through the roof. That's what's gonna happen.
Two defensive players for me. If Gardner and Stingley are not there, give me Andrew Booth.
Yes.
Give me Booth Jr., please. Yep. Give me another outside corner. I mean, people were complaining about his size, but guess what? Him and Slay are the same build, and people have no problem with Slay. So just get over that. But to conclude the presentation here, yes, Joey did mention with me being on the Gauntlet podcast and the joining that I did with Philly Jim, who his channel is now called Gauntlet Sports Media. It's not Philly Jim no more, but Philly Jim and I will be doing a podcast that is set for April 29th. He is going to have an announcement video coming up in the coming days. I think he's on a minor hiatus right now. I think he's got some pressure through his education or whatever. But you gotta keep your brain as healthy as possible, man. But nonetheless, we have been working on this podcast for a little bit now. We got a name for it. We got to come up with a logo, and we got a date for it. So it is going to be called the Linked Up Podcast. Going to be going on Sideline Sports Network with myself and Philly Jim, April 29th. linked up in reference to Lincoln Financial Field, not NK or no, not linked up. LinkedIn. I'm sorry, man, I forgot the name already. LinkedIn. It is not
awesome.
the Career Connection website. It is not spelled the same.
Yo, I said to myself, holy crap, I think I've heard that. Maybe I just because when I searched for a job back in the day, I just see that. Yeah.
No. LINC''D for the good old Lincoln Financial Field. That is going to be the LinkedIn. God, I said it again. LinkedIn podcast, April 29th. Be sure to look out for that with myself and Philly Jim. And for this stream, before it carries on for another 5 minutes when we get stuck in some other conversation. But for Joey and I, we thank you for coming to this presentation of episode 13 of the revived Touchdown Talk series with myself, Lindy Enzo, bringing it back. Fly Eagles, fly bird, brothers and sisters. Bleed green as always. Take care of yourselves. Stay safe. Have a good night, and we will see you next time. Go Birds, everybody.